There can be only one podcast, and may it be the Prince of the Universe. Hi, folks. I'm Matt.
And I'm Wes.
Hey, it's the last Dark Side of the Ring double episode review.
It is a dark side of the ring for our wrapping up this podcast.
It is. It has been. And one of the best ones that people keep telling me is the next one we're going to talk about, Bash of the Beach.
I think that was the best one this year.
That was the best one this year. This is one that I've read a lot of books about. It was in the history of WCW that you gave me, I believe.
Yep.
It was in Vince Russo's book. It was in Eric Bischoff's book. And
I'm sure it's in Hogan's book and a few others.
I'm sure it's in Hogan's book, too.
But if I wanted to read dog crap, I'd just pick it up off the ground.
Hello.
Hogan's
Heyo.
stories. Man, they just don't stop with that guy.
They do not with him. But so I got to hear. I knew Bischoff's version. I knew Vince Russo's version. It was nice to see kind of the whole, them retell their tales with other people's views and ideas.
Yeah, sprinkled in because it just made it seem like it really painted a picture of how so much self-sabotage was happening, and really people just did not care.
Yeah. No, and it was just... We're talking about the one from Bash at the Beach 2000.
Correct.
And I remember when this happened. I didn't watch the pay-per-view. I don't know if anyone who did. Did you watch it live?
I did not. We had kind of given up on spending the money on it at that point.
Yeah, at that point, if you had to choose, it was going to be WWF at the time. It wasn't going to be WCW. They had kind of gone... that was probably the year that a lot of people just said, you know what, it's just not worth keeping up with both of them.
Yeah, their business was probably fell off from 50% from the year before and was, greatly different from
in 99, you were just watching, hoping they would make a turnaround.
Yeah, hoping they're going to get the nose up on that plane.
Yeah, and then when you realize it's getting worse, not better.
Correct.
So it's time to go. So cut your losses and left, and a lot of people did. And then this one got a lot of talk the next day. Because no one knew what happened.
Well, you had an idea. I mean, if you watch it, you can tell this is pretty contrived, and they expose how contrived it was. But supposedly, when Russo comes back out, that's the real.
And that's what got me. That's why I didn't
of it.
Yeah, that's why I didn't know either. I thought it was a work too, and then Vince Russo comes out, says all that, and does this, and I'm like, well, was it done on purpose? Was this? Was it? Was it sabotage?
Well, it's slanderous, but I mean, how much of what he said isn't true?
Yeah.
But I guess, they just wanted to just drive the stake down into the heart of that company, and they were doing a really good job of it.
Drove it into the ground there. For anyone who doesn't know, Jeff Jarrett, who is a leading champion, was supposed to... was getting challenged by Hogan at Bash of the Beach for the title. Hogan was supposed to win, walk away with it, drop it later and come back or something.
It was supposed to be that was the thing. Like, if you watch it, that's the best part of it is especially Bischoff and Russo trying to explain why their idea was best, and at the end of the episode, you basically realize neither one of those guys.
No, they both came out looking like losers.
Terrible, and I almost think Bischoff looked worse.
I think he
than
did
Russo, because Bischoff, when he told his master plan of this tournament, and he kind of just like sat back, like, see what I had up my sleeve, and you were just like, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's a horrible idea.
I mean, the company is sinking. That is a terrible idea. To me, the best thing they could have done if Hogan's got creative control is if that's all he wanted to do is just pay him and let him sit home.
Yeah.
Because
for real.
If whatever you've got to pay him to keep him off, because if you can't do anything better with him and he can't come up with a better idea, then there's no need to bring him in. Because it just made it look...
The idea was they had no idea, and Bash at the Beach was one of their biggest ones.
Yeah, it's
biggest
probably in their
pay-per-view. Top three? Or no?
I would say top 6 for sure. I would say Halloween Havoc and Starrcade are your top 2.
Well, I know that'd be the top 2, but Bash at the Beach wouldn't be 3.
I mean, it's up there.
Okay.
I
don't know.
I would definitely
that
say
one I
it's
recall
up there.
more than the... I agree with you with Starrcade and Halloween Havoc.
I think that Bash at the Beach kind of resonates because that was Hogan's first pay-per-view in 94, and then that's where he turned heel in 96. So he did have a lot of history with his character coming in, and to really think, like, he almost didn't just turn heel. He turned heel and set the business on fire, and then this double cross storyline was really just when people probably really were done.
Yeah.
Like, WCW turned heel on their fan base. It just was like,
wow, did they?
Screw this.
Did they really? I mean, it's just, but then Vince Russo's telling his version and saying how his version is just so much smarter, but yet it fell flat. It fell flat. And I like Booker T, but that was kind of an insult to Booker T to kind of, it was like almost an afterthought.
Well, they almost, the way they talk about this event, and I know that a lot of contextualizing of it is like this is what they were going to do that was going to get them to the next step. And that's how they did everything. And that was the problem. Like, everything was the next step, but they couldn't.
They know where they were headed toward.
The left foot tripped the right foot on every step. So eventually it just collapsed. Like, there was no, like, 6-month plan, 3-month plan.
No, it was, what are we going to do right now?
Yeah. And
we don't even know what we're going to do for the main title.
This is what's going to jumpstart it. Yeah. And it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah. But without any plan. Any plan. Like, even the announcers didn't know what was going on half the time.
I think that, and I think that it's pretty obvious, like, Schiavone has been honest about how checked out he was because he was just exhausted from it all. Yeah. I think that's a guy that started in 83 at the very first Starrcade to you get to that point 17 years later and you're just kind of embarrassed to be part of it.
Is that what he said?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that's what he said, and I'm not saying Schiavone's had a bunch of great ideas, but to think of where that guy was.
No, he saw the rise and fall.
Yeah, he was in all of it. To look at that, I'm sure, and people, were pretty critical of him at that point in his career, and he's definitely made a comeback. But anybody that was a fan of that, you just watch it, and it's just disheartening.
Oh yeah, completely. I've never heard Booker T's version of this.
I think Booker stays out of all that. I
he
think
says
that
he'll
talk about it if he's like but he doesn't want to give it much. I mean, his career speaks for itself.
He didn't need to say it started off on a controversial whatever ruling.
Anybody that came out of WCW, they had hit and peaks and valleys in their career after they left, but he by far was the biggest star that came out of that part. I'm not comparing before WCW.
No, I know what you mean.
But after, he was by far, and then held on to his career and has become like a elder statesman of the business now.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh, definitely deserved.
Yeah,
he's definitely deserved.
I'm sure that's probably why he's like, I don't want to talk about it. This is dumb.
Yeah.
This is so beneath me at this point because of how hard he was working at that point in his career. And watch his stardom from, the best of 7 with Benoit and everything that he had that led up to that over those 2-year span to just a
pissing match between two people who had terrible ideas and a vendetta against each other.
Oh yeah, to think that and that to me is the takeaway of the show. When everyone ever wonders like what killed WCW, one of it is Turner sold and they were going to shut it down, but your leadership between Bischoff and Russo, and I'm not saying Brad Siegel and the real higher up people, but the guys that were like in charge of like the TV product, terrible.
Yeah, they failed you. They ran out of ideas.
Everyone was out of ideas.
Everyone was out of ideas. They pointed they were too busy blaming others, and no one was coming up. No collaboration, no communication. Just throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. If it doesn't, just keep moving.
To me, it's a lot. It's indicative of almost of how wrestling is now, where it's such a week to week project, and then you have WWE with the storylines, and then you have AEW, which is just matches regardless of a storyline almost. And that's how WCW was. They would like try something for a week and give up. Try something for a week, give up.
Yeah. So let me ask you this though: does Bash at the Beach? Obviously, it doesn't for you. and it doesn't for me either, but I can't tell you when marks what marks the pinnacle, like, this is it for WCW. Like, there's no, what was the point where we both said, I can't remember now, was it Halloween Havoc, Ultimate Warrior Hogan? Was that when we finally said, this is not, that there's nothing good that can come of this?
I can't say that. I mean, I watched it pretty faithfully through 99.
But there was some point where you gave up, and I did too. But I just don't know when that would have been.
Yeah, I just think it's after a while. Like, you go, did you watch it last night? You're like, I watched for 15 minutes, and you didn't even
still my TiVo.
Yeah,
I
didn't
catch
care
the rest of
to
it.
even try to go back in between a commercial break.
Exactly.
Because the first bit of it. And it just didn't. You could just tell there was not a lot of excitement.
It wasn't must-watch TV. There
anymore.
Wasn't a match you could talk about. Oh, did you see that match between so and so? It was like, man.
And I think there was a lot of characters that got missed in that, Booker being like such a big star. But to me, man, Scott Steiner's career, the biggest part of his career were in the dying days of WCW, and he was a killer at that point. I mean, that was when he really was Big Papa Pump, and he was ridiculous, and he was just jacked.
Yeah.
Just,
I remember.
He was
your big bad booty daddy there.
And to think that the dying days of WCW, you kind of, that's what they talk about, but man, he had such a, the guy that should have beat Goldberg.
Honestly, yeah. They had good, it wasn't a problem that the talent wasn't there. Just being underutilized and not pushed to its biggest extent.
Well, no one was held accountable. I think that was the thing. You watch Bash at the Beach and you go, no one's accountable because no one's really in charge. Like, you send people home, but you bring them back. If you're going to send somebody home, just let them be home until you figure out what you want to do. And they just kept with that back and forth.
True. And I'm thinking about this. Halloween Havoc 1999 was Hogan Ultimate Warrior, right?
No, that was 98.
Okay. I'm just trying to think, what was it in 99 that made me finally say, you know what, it's just not worth watching.
99's Havoc was Vince Russo's first pay-per-view that they booked. And it was all of these ideas thrown out, and I think Sting beat Goldberg at the end of the pay-per-view, and you thought he was something happened like that, and then the next day they're like, oh, that was an official match, the belts hung, and it was that kind of where you would pay this money to watch the pay-per-view. And I know we watched that pay-per-view
sunk.
And then the next day that 3-hour experience was just totally washed out, and you go, oh no, we're doing something else. And you don't have any consumer confidence at that point.
Right.
Because you go, why not spend $30 if the next time I watch this, which is free, they just waste that away. It's different if you're like a heel and you're like, oh, brother, you don't have footage of him pinning me like Hogan did with Piper at the Sleeper. But like with that, it was just like the company didn't care. And you're like, I don't want to be involved with this anymore.
See, and I think I was done by then because I don't even remember talking about that or anything. There's some point in 1999. When was the New Blood storyline? Was that 2000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's when Bischoff and Russo were.
I definitely wasn't watching by then. And I love Billy Kidman, and I was happy to see him get a push, but even that couldn't bring me back.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that was a bad storyline by any means. It was just, once again, it was more of that start-stop.
Yeah, let's start something, but we don't know how to finish it.
That should have been stretched out in a way and really dug into and could have done something with it, but they just tried to just do too much.
When was the Latino World Order?
That was way before that.
Oh, okay. I can't remember what point because there was a point in 99.
It was before 99, Latino World Order.
Okay, that's fine. There was a point in 99 where I said, it's just not worth it. And I just stopped watching WCW. I didn't care about watching WCW, and I didn't know much about the storylines anymore because I was like, no, if I'm going to invest my time, it's not going to be for this. It's going to be for WWE, and not even watch anything. Just stop flipping the channels. Don't care, like you said, don't care about the pay-per-views.
Well, I think, and I don't think that helped Vince at all in WWF. I'm not saying that they weren't mega successful, but
right,
it led up to them being very complacent because, it's one thing if they're still on and you're pounding them on Monday nights, but when it got to that point where it's no competition. Like,
oh yeah, it's just done.
They got a better chance of Andy Griffith beating Raw than Nitro. It's just a sad state of affairs. Yeah. But like I said, the takeaway of that episode, not to just grind this down, was Bischoff and Russo's recollection and their ideas. Even after 20 years, they were worse than they were before.
Yeah,
they couldn't even make the story sound better.
That's true.
It was just terrible.
And both of them acted like you're right. In that video, Bishop was looking like, see, like wouldn't that have been a great idea? And Vince was going, see, don't you see how this? No, I see how both of them are crap and garbage and don't make any sense, and how both of you guys failed the company.
I thought it was interesting how Jarrett really painted Hogan so negatively, but yet he was willing to do business with him in TNA. On the failed angle that then Hogan did come back in. But it's just kind of funny to see Jarrett doing it. And I'm not knocking him for doing it, but...
Wasn't Jarrett kind of running TNA? Jeff Jarrett?
Well, he was, yeah, of course he was. But
So he was trying to do anything just to get those numbers on. And he knew Hogan, though he didn't respect him, he knew Hogan's a draw.
Right. Yeah, well, I agree. I'm just saying for him to have such a bad taste in his mouth over that, if he really had that big of a bad taste in his mouth,
then he wouldn't have allowed Hogan to come back.
He wouldn't.
Yeah, and he had the power to do that too.
Yeah, it's like Austin. The reason Austin didn't work with Hogan is because Austin didn't want to work with Hogan.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They can spend that however they want to now, but he didn't want to.
Yeah.
He was done with Hogan from the WCW runaround, and he knew he was a bigger star. Now, did it work out for him? But he can at least sit here and say whatever he wants to, but he did not work with Hogan because he didn't want to. He didn't care how much money was to be made or how much money Vince was going to make.
Yep.
And what's also impressive about that is Vince didn't make him, but then kind of screwed him for it with the whole Brock Lesnar thing. But that's a whole nother podcast of wrestling nonsense.
Oh.
But it's a sad takeaway to watch that, with that being your leadership, and realized how bad it must have been for those employees because they went in and just felt doomed every day.
Yeah. Knew the writing was on the wall. Numbers weren't adding up. Shows were getting more and more disastrous and nonsensical.
Yeah.
Stories getting picked up, dropped off. And then, like you said, everyone's sitting on fat contracts and not really caring. Well, no one's heart was in it.
I'm not knocking them for not caring.
I'm not either. If the business doesn't care, then I get it. If they're being treated like, here's your storyline today, but it's not there next week.
And you go, what do you got for me? And you bring an idea, and they don't ever want to do your idea. You soldier along until your contract is over, and then you move on.
I mean, talking to a lot of those people, they were just fine, just the $1 million man, happy sitting at home making the money. Then if they don't want him, then he'll just sit at home and collect his paycheck.
I mean, Teddy had paid his dues. And,
that's true too. I'm just saying that other people.
I definitely think that we've talked about that before. He got the rug way pulled out from under him.
Yeah.
On that storyline, but.
So I wasn't watching it back then. Well, maybe I was, and I just don't recall him being a part of it because that was back when I was just getting in and stuff. Was he that big of a? You think he should have had the mic still? And
I think that he should have been. Originally, it seemed like he was going to be the guy behind the NWO, and then Bischoff
the financer
stepped in. It was like, and then basically all DiBiase did was walk around holding Hogan's belt
and laughing, at everyone else's joke.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to pay the guy $300,000, I'd hold the belt too. I'm just saying that, man, bad leadership. Like, why bring the guy in if you can't do something with him?
Well, I mean, shoot, look at Bret Hart.
Yeah,
how they flubbed, how they got all these stars, and they should have used them way higher. I mean, they keeping their talent low, like Jericho. Jericho leaves the WCW and gets everything he wants in WWF.
Yeah, I just the takeaway, like I said, is those two and how ignorant they sounded many years later, trying to plead their case.
Still trying to plead their case and bury the other person.
Right. And no one looked any better at the end of that episode.
Both of them looked like kids who couldn't let a little grudge go.
Correct.
Yep. And this far in their career, it's time to just let bygones be bygones. Say, hey, we screwed up.
Yeah, it would have come across a lot better.
It would have come across a lot better. Say, hey, we screwed up. We didn't have the fans in mind. Our heads weren't on straight. You know, we were struggling. We were desperate. We didn't know what we were doing. And you know what? I would accept that, and I'd see him in a better light, to be honest.
If you would say, we handled things the wrong way,
I
can look in the camera and tell you that today. Yeah, come off a little bit better.
I agree. The last one was Marty Jannetty.
Poor Marty.
They talked about how he and Brett met. Sean. How he and Sean met. How they became an awesome tag team. They just kind of jived together. They, communicated well. They were on the same page. Obviously, that's true because they were super popular.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they took that Southern way of blonde and brunette, however you want to spin that salt and pepper team and run with it. And, yeah, they took everything from everybody else and did an amazing job with it.
But as the story goes, Sean was smooching Vince's booty and got
I think that's definitely one way of looking at it. But if you look at Sean's career, he may have kissed Vince's butt, which if you're going to kiss anybody's butt, let it be your boss.
Yeah.
But he backed it up in the ring.
He was the
top line performer, and the guys liked him better. Like Piper, people like that, major guys that had Vince's ear, kind of looked at Marty as a goof, and it did do Marty any favors.
And their careers went in totally different directions.
And Marty did not ever pull the nose up on his career or life.
No, he did not. And several injuries, just, ankles made of glass. When they're interviewing him, he also had a broken ankle at that time. So, I mean, it's just still nothing heals on the man. He blames it on, I can't remember what he called it, the Church of Bad Luck or whatever. It's always bad luck. It's bad luck. He just had a bad break every time he had his chance to, be the best.
Yeah, and that's what Dark Side of the Ring does. It really kind of highlights a bad decision, and they go, how can we amplify this?
Well, everyone else is saying it's, that's just Marty not taking accountability and just blaming it on bad luck. And he's still doing that today.
Yeah.
As he's talking. And, he even got second shots, third shots. The man had a lot of lives.
Yeah, he had a lot. They threw him a lot of lifelines, and he continually coughed them up. I mean, a big thing is, when he came back in the mid-'90s with Al Snow when they were the New Rockers, Al Snow went on to ECW and really developed his career even further and made himself such a huge star. Marty could have done something like that. It's just unfortunate that his just personal life was so out of control.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And all the boys from whoever you would talk to from that timeline, you watch any shoot interview, and they've got Marty's stories are kind of like Iron Sheik's stories. They're so preposterous and grand that it's amazing the guy's even alive.
Oh, yeah.
But he is a shell of himself, kind of how Sheik was, physically.
Yeah, physically. Well, I mean, you do all that to your body over the years, and it's going to pay a toll, a hefty toll on you. They talked about how he came back with he and Sean kind of mended their when Sean converted to Christianity, invited Marty over.
Yeah, Marty went and bought a Bible.
Well, Marty buys a Bible. They patch things up together. Sean gets him on Raw, and they do their whole Rockers gig again. It goes like it's wildfire because people love nostalgia, and they love seeing him back. And it was according to Marty, it was a good match. It looked decent, the clips they showed. But he said it felt like good old times, and offered him a contract, and once again he screwed things up.
Well, who knows? I would say it more along the lines they probably said, we'll give you an opportunity. We'll put you on a weekly guarantee, something. And I'm sure Marty was like, well, why not? Why can't I have blank? And it's just like, well, you got to, you may have been in the business this whole time, but, you have been in and out of the highest level. And the guy just, it's kind of like the video years ago of the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. I mean, Marty Jannetty is a self-destructor if anybody is.
Oh yeah. It's all him. And everyone made that clear in the video that he just didn't know how to control himself
and
how to right the
rough.
ship. Yeah, after getting second, third, fourth tries, a way to, like you just said, reinvent himself, which could work. Even later in his life, he could have gone out swan song, couple of good match, something memorable. People would have been. Everyone loves an underdog, a comeback story. Everyone loves that. People give you a
it's a tough situation to watch him, and I know there's a ton of stories about Marty, but the funniest one is he talks about partying with Sheik, and he leaves a girl in the Sheik's room because he goes and finds another girl because why not?
Why not?
He's a midnight rocker. And he basically comes back, and the cops are at the hotel, and Sheik pulls him in and tells Marty that he gave the girl some party favors, and she didn't want to do business with Sheik then, so Sheik like short arm clotheslines her. And the way Marty tells the story is hilarious because he says, "Sheik, why would you do that?" And he said, "Marty, she don't know how to work." So, basically almost now who knows how true this story is because it's so preposterous and funny. But the sad fact of the matter is that was Marty's life every day. It was completely out of control.
And that's the other thing. He's the giver of tall tales.
Yes.
Tells a lot of stories, and a lot of them aren't true or heavily embellished. But he keeps telling the same stories, but they get more preposterous over time. He's the guy who caught the fish that just gets bigger and bigger.
And it always got away.
And it always
it always got away.
It always got away. But yeah. So definitely a sad tale there. When what was it? Sean stole his wife, right?
I think I don't know about all of that for sure. I think that. I mean, who knows?
Oh,
I mean, I'm just saying a lot of things get shared back then, so I'm sure that that was being shared, and maybe,
that was being shared because they were best friends.
Maybe somebody didn't know about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's the most scandalous switcheroo to you?
The most scandalous switcheroo?
Like they were dating so-and-so and then went off, or married to so-and-so and then left them for so-and-so.
In the wrestling business?
In the wrestling business.
Gosh, I would have to say Benoit and Sullivan and...
oh, okay, that one?
Yeah, Nancy. Yeah, I would say, my gosh, they booked that angle into a divorce, and then the whole thing just ended tragically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that would be the worst switcheroo.
I didn't know what else to call it.
No, we'll call it that. It was the worst switcheroo in the history of our great sport.
There you go. What do you hope for season 5, the final season? What do you hope that what story have they not tackled yet that you say, man, I really hope that they bring this story up?
I think there's a couple. I definitely don't know how much of like a WWF storyline they're going to have to probably pull from more of like the Southern wrestling from back in the day. I think the story about Tully Blanchard being blackballed out of the business for cocaine is a good story to be told because he was such a major player. I think that a lot of what could be talked about is just the business side of the business. I think that that's what can be a pretty fascinating story that people don't know. I think Tommy Rich beating Harley for 6 days for the NWA title is a good story to be told because of how hot Tommy Rich was and how Harley knew what was good for business but was going to take the title back, but it made Tommy Rich a mega star. So I think it's little stuff like that.
Well, and characters like that, those are the ones they usually bring to light, too.
Yeah, I think that those are the biggest stories that could really be looked at because some of those guys are still going and made okay life in the business, and some of them totally turned their life into a different business, kind of how Tully did. So I think things like that. I don't know how much is left as far as like a Jimmy Snuka murder story and things like that. I think all that is kind of
that's passed and
that's come and gone,
addressed, but there's still more to come.
Yeah, I think that you look into just dig into that side of it, and instead of painting the guys into terrible pictures, you can paint these promotions. These promoters is they're kind of like cockfighting. They just wear these guys out and then throw them away.
It's a different type of story, but same theme.
Yeah,
the TV show gives. I agree. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. There's our reviews of all season 4. We're done talking wrestling for the short time. We'll be back when they come back with season 5, and we'll see you next time on Princes of the Universe.